Well, it's Halloween, ladies and gentlemen, so you know what that means.
Time for the obligatory scary upload!
So I've decided to talk about the only horror game I've ever really played extensively, Five Nights at Freddy's. Now I see you all grabbing your pitchforks and calling me a cancerous little kid, but I think you should hear my arguments first and then decide. For those of you who've been living under a rock for the past 3 years, Five Nights at Freddy's is a horror game that was insanely popular during its release, but is slowly dying nowadays. It's still not completely dead though. It has 5 games, 1 spin-off, 2 books, and an upcoming movie, so I don't think we're quite done with FNAF yet. Be that as it may, I feel like now is a great time to delve into the series, its popularity, and what it means to me. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Frog Mario All6J, and today I'm asking you to come on a journey with me as we take a look at the horror series that shook the genre, Five Nights at Freddy's. Five Nights at Freddy's was the first horror game I ever played, and I was genuinely scared of it. I'd watched horror games and things like that before on YouTube, but this game was so different. You couldn't move, fight back, or do anything like that. Of course, there were the jump scares that appeared in every game, but you weren't being attacked by huge monstrous creatures or scary serial killers. You were being jumped by the animatronics at a child's restaurant, like at Chuck E. Cheese. It exploited that little fear we all had of those animatronics as children. The main gameplay consisted of you just sitting at a desk, checking cameras, turning on lights on your doors to see if animatronics were peeking in at you, and closing those doors if they were. Everything you did other than looking around wasted a small bit of the building's electricity, so not only did you have to protect yourself from the killer animatronics, you also had to manage your resources so the building's power wouldn't kick out and leave you defenseless. Scott Cawthon designed the game in Click Team Fusion, which is a somewhat basic game creating software, so he used what limitations he had and made something great. He knew he had to be creative with his limitations, that the game had to be scary, and that it had to be unique and stand out from other games, and the game's limitations ended up becoming its successes. There were also little mysteries sprinkled around the game to interest players looking for more of a story-based experience. Who was Golden Freddy? What terrible event occurred at this restaurant? What was the bite of 87? All of these unanswered questions and more kept theorists and those looking to delve deeper into the story wondering. In short, Five Nights at Freddy's was a great horror game, popularized for its unique concept and gameplay and its many mysteries. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was released only 3 months after the first Five Nights at Freddy's. While your basic movement options were limited like the first game, the second installment in the Five Nights at Freddy's series changed up the gameplay and story largely. There was even enough story inconsistencies and changes that Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was proved to be a prequel to the original game. For the gameplay, FNAF 2 opted to remove the whole doors and lights mechanic, which was central to the gameplay of the first game. Instead, there were no doors anywhere to be found, and your light was limited to a flashlight that ran on batteries rather than the entire building's energy supply. Scott also made this game arguably the most difficult in the series, with 11 animatronics total. 4 new, shiny toy versions of the previous game's animatronics, Balloon Boy, a small childlike animatronic that steals your flashlight batteries, 4 old rundown versions of Freddy, Chica, Bonnie, and Foxy, and the Marionette, a creature that is still yet to be determined to even be an animatronic. The Marionette is a particularly interesting animatronic, as it doesn't seem to fit in with the rest, and it doesn't look anything like any of the other animatronics in the series. After you die in the game, you might randomly come across an Atari-styled 8-bit minigame, and these minigames give you the backstory of this restaurant. You learn about the Purple Guy, a child killer who becomes the main antagonist of the series. You also learn about the origins of the Marionette and all the other animatronics. FNAF 2 added more Easter eggs than those of the minigames, and that combined with the already very successful FNAF 1 brought in a very large audience, making it the most popular game in the series to this date besides the first one. Five Nights at Freddy's 3 came out a measly 4 months after FNAF 2 and was a very different sort of game than the others. Arguably the easiest game in the series, it was more of a memorization of patterns and effects than a resource juggling experience. The game only had one main animatronic, Springtrap, but plenty of phantom scares that wouldn't hurt you, but they would pull down some of your resource managing system. Of course, the Easter eggs were back and they were absurdly difficult to find. I feel like Scott knew how many people were going to play this game, so he made it incredibly difficult, knowing that only a small amount of people in a sea of many would find them. This game also brings in the story heavily, as after every night you get treated to another 8-bit style minigame that relays the story of the children hunting the animatronic suits and the transition from Purple Guy to Springtrap. All in all, Five Nights at Freddy's 3 was a decently successful game, but its easy difficulty and insane Easter eggs turned off a large amount of fans from the series, thus leading the series' slow decline over the next few games. With FNAF 4, Scott really tried to break the cycle of his games coming out only months after each other. He originally planned the game to come out on Halloween 2015, then pushed the date to August 8th, then he released the game on July 23rd, 2015 to moderate success. This game easily looked like it had the most work put into it up at this point in the series, and fans were expecting a lot since Scott had labeled this game the final chapter. Unfortunately, these expectations were not met when FNAF 4 was released. Despite it arguably being the scariest, this game was the most disappointing in the series. It was a formula break from the other Five Nights at Freddy's games, changing the location, some game mechanics, and relying on a sound-based system rather than one of power like the previous entries. In this game, you play in a child's bedroom, trying to survive the night from nightmare versions of the animatronics we've come to know and love. The main mechanic of this game is opening a door and listening for breathing. If you hear nothing, go ahead and shine your light down the hallway, but if there is breathing, you better close it because it means an animatronic is on the other side of the door getting ready to jump scare you. The biggest problem with this system is that the breathing was very quiet, making listeners have to turn up their volume all the way to be able to barely hear and giving them the scare of their lives when they did get jump scared. The mechanic also worked about 50% of the time, leading to many unfair deaths. The 8-bit minigames returned after every night as well, feeding even more into the story of Five Nights at Freddy's. DLC was also released on Halloween for this game, but it was nothing too special. So with the final chapter of Five Nights at Freddy's being completed, where else was there to go? Before we delve into the next chapter of the Five Nights at Freddy's series, I want to briefly mention some of the fan games created from FNAF. Around December of 2014, a fan game based on Five Nights at Freddy's and the Disney creepypasta Abandoned by Disney was released, titled Five Nights at Treasure Island. This game inspired many other small game creators to create fan games, and boy did they create. Many FNAF fan games have been released, such as Five Nights at Candy's, Five Nights at Wario's, The Joy of Creation, Those Nights at Rachel's, and many more. Five Nights at Freddy's has not only entertained many, but also given many smaller creators bigger names in the indie gaming scene, and has inspired the genre of pizzeria horror. With Five Nights at Freddy's 4 being the final chapter, many assumed the series was over and done, and this was largely confirmed by Scott when he uploaded a thank you image to his website, scottgames.com. Over time, however, the image slowly started to change, and the characters started to become cuter in appearance. Near the end, it was announced that Scott was working on a FNAF RPG game called FNAF World. The fans of the series were very divided, as some were open to this new take on their beloved series, and others were angry at Scott for not making another horror game. But when FNAF World finally came out, everybody could agree that the game wasn't very good. The overworld graphics were lazy, the combat was stale, and some of the puzzles were outright ridiculous, but Scott took his time and eventually released a version of the game that ironed out all the bugs and fixed many other problems, and since then, the game has been received relatively well. Okay, so you had all your main series FNAF games, your fan games, and even your RPG spin-off. Surely FNAF had to be over at this point, right? Nope. Scott decided to create another spin-off to Five Nights at Freddy's that was canon, was establishable in the timeline, and was most importantly, a horror game. Five Nights at Freddy's sister location sees you working as the night repair maintenance guy. This game is even more of a formula break than FNAF 4, with full voice acting to feel like a real fleshed out gaming experience, bits of comedy delivered by your little computer instructor, and the biggest change, every night being its own unique experience with its unique objectives. Night 1 is just a tutorial so the player can learn the basics of the game. Night 2, as you hide under a desk from some babies, walk past a ballerina and say hi to a Funtime Freddy. Night 3 sees you walk past Foxy and fix the Funtime Freddy and his Bonnie puppet before getting jumped by Foxy on the way back and starting Night 4. Night 4 is probably the most aggravating night. So aggravating, in fact, that Scott had to release a patch to the game lowering the difficulty of it. Night 5 wraps up the whole story, ending in the player going to the scooping room and getting his insides scooped out like a pumpkin. Ooh, how fitting with the season. And replaced with the animatronics insides. He later spits them out and becomes the purple guy, but I'm not going to go any further into that. Five Nights at Freddy's sister location is probably the best game in the series. It's challenging, doesn't get monotonous, and is just entertaining. Unfortunately for FNAF though, when this game came out on October 7, 2016, the audience for FNAF had kinda drifted away, so nobody really cared that much about a new FNAF game. Five Nights at Freddy's is a great horror series. The games are really cool for the software they were built on, and they hold a special place in my heart. Some, but not all, fans of the series though really disturb me. Like when I saw this drawing of, okay, what even is that? Is that supposed to be some kind of... Excuse me, how does that even... What kind of face even is that? Okay, no, burn it all, please! Ah! In all seriousness, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I really do like the FNAF games. Have a safe Halloween, eat lots of candy, and I'll see you all in the next video.